Thanks for joining me in today's lesson. In this first tutorial, we will recognize and use the pattern for a 45-45-90 right triangle. We're still in section 13.1, and in this lesson, we're going to focus on the two special right triangles that we learned in geometry. Firstly, we'll look at the 45-degree, 45-degree, 90-degree right triangle. And here's a picture of it. Obviously, here's the 90-degree angle, so therefore the other two angles must be my 45-degree and 45-degree. And if we have two angles in a triangle that are congruent, then the opposite sides must also be congruent. And therefore, the two legs in a 45, 45, 90 right triangle must be the same. So if one of them is labeled with an X, then the other one must be labeled with an X. The two legs must be the same. If we know what the leg of a 45, 45, 90 triangle is, then we simply take that value and multiply by the square root of 2, and we have the hypotenuse. And the pattern is that simple. I like to think of it as we have two sides that are the same, two angles that are the same, and therefore we're going to be using the square root of 2. That's my pattern. If we have the leg, we multiply by the square root of 2. If we have the hypotenuse, we divide by the square root of 2. And that's it. Let's put in some numbers and make sure we really understand that pattern. Look at our directions. It says find the missing lengths and the angle measures, but we're going to use exact solutions. We are not going to round. We should be able to use an equal sign for each of our answers. So example number 1, obviously we have a right triangle, and one of the angles is 45 degrees. That means that the other angle has to also be 45 degrees. So now I know what A is. A is equal to 45 degrees. If one of the legs in a 45, 45, 90 triangle is 10, then the other one must be 10. So now I know what X is. Really not much work there, other than understanding the pattern. So if both of the legs are 10, then I simply multiply by the square root of 2, and I know what the hypotenuse is. So now I know what Y is, and I'm finished. 10 times the square root of 2. You can check that, of course, with your Pythagorean theorem, but that's how you solve that right triangle very fast, understanding the pattern. Let's look at example number 2. This time, of course, we have a right triangle. I don't know either of my acute angles. I do know that whatever they are, they will add up to 90 degrees. Here's my hint. One of the legs is X, and the other leg is also X. So therefore, they must be the same. And if the legs are the same, then the angles must be the same. So that was kind of tricky. But I know that A and B have to both be the same. And if we have to have two angles that have to be the same and add up to 90 degrees, well, then they both must be 45 degrees. So this is a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. I have the hypotenuse. I don't know what the leg is. So all I'm going to do to find the leg, either one of them, is divide by the square root of 2. If I have the hypotenuse, I just have to divide by the square root of 2. X is going to be my hypotenuse, which is 4 square roots of 2. And I'm going to divide by the square root of 2. And that's not too bad. The square root of 2 actually just cancel away. And I get that the leg X is equal to 4. Both of them. And that makes sense. 4 and 4 and 4 square root of 2. That works. Let's look at our third example. Again, I have a right triangle. I don't know what either of the two acute angles are, and I don't know anything about the side lengths. Oops, except, yes I do. Here's my hint. Somebody put my little tick marks. If the tick mark is in there, then that must mean that X and Y are exactly the same. And if X and Y are exactly the same, then their opposite angles must also be. So A and B have to be equal, and if two angles have to be equal and add up to 90 degrees, then we know that they both have to be 45 degrees. So now we need to figure out my two legs. Well, I have my hypotenuse again, so I'm simply going to divide by the square root of 2, and I'll have my leg. So let's find X. So I actually do know that X and Y are exactly the same, so I'll just do this. I'll take my hypotenuse 12, and I will divide by the square root of 2. Okay, this is going to be a little bit more involved because we don't have a simple square root of 2 that cancels away. We have to rationalize. We cannot have a square root in the denominator, so I do need to rationalize. I'm going to multiply the denominator by square root of 2 and the numerator by square root of 2. And let's see what we have here. 12 times the square root of 2, of course, is my numerator. My denominator is square root of 2 times square root of 2, which is 2. And now I can see that 12 divided by 2 can reduce. And I'll have that x and y are both the same, and that it is 6 square roots of 2, or that they are 6 square roots of 2. Okay, so a little bit of work with some radicals here and rationalizing, but pretty simple pattern. Let's skip over to our last example, at least of the 45, 45, 90s. That's example 6. I have a 90-degree angle and a 45-degree angle. Again, that must mean that this is 45 degrees. So that's the missing angle. A is 45 degrees. And I know that x and y must now be the same since the two angles, of course, are the same. So I know that x is equal to y. And since I have my hypotenuse, I'm simply going to divide by the square root of 2 to find the legs. So I'm going to take my 1 and I'm going to divide by square root of 2. So it looks like the same situation as we had last time. We have a square root in the denominator, so I'm just going to multiply by the square root of 2 to the numerator and the denominator to undo that denominator. And I will have x is equal to y, which is equal to the numerator, which is 1 square root of 2, and the denominator, which is 2. And that's it. I already had my angle, and now I have my side length. I like to show you these two examples here at the end of this lesson because these two values that we're going to get, the ones over here and this one, these are special unit circle values. And we're going to discover more about the unit circle in a future year, most likely next year. But I want to show you now because square root of 2 over 2 is going to be a special unit circle value. Thanks for watching this tutorial on 45, 45, 90, and I'll see you in the next one.